Hey everyone, I'm Mark Hespen. I am joined here with Senator Rose and Senator Lewis. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. We're talking budget. First question, I want to make sure we cover this one. Obviously, the governor asks, have you ever tried to banish love to the shadow and make sure, do you find out if it'll only reach harder for the sun? Have you ever tried to banish love to the shadow?
I think many of us were confused by quite a bit of what he said, but
I believe the last 2.5 pages were mainly about love. Do you think he thought maybe this was on Valentine's Day?
That was last week.
They missed the mark on that one. I think we all would agree. We'd like to maybe hear a little bit more about some actual numbers, right, Senator Lewis?
I would agree. You know, my initial reaction was that the speech fell flat. His rhetoric was middle of the road, which, should be good.
Yeah.
But it did nothing, I think, to uplift the spirits of the state, the average resident. And that's what I was looking for. But the speech, I thought the chamber was flat. I mean, there wasn't much clapping. There wasn't much excitement. There wasn't much booing. It was probably the worst speech I've seen him give in the 6 years I've been here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is the worst speech he's given, which is pretty amazing given the enormous importance he placed on this speech for his ambitions. But it wasn't written very well. It didn't contain much substance, and quite frankly, it wasn't delivered very well.
I think the substance thing is interesting because it's like, what does he have to go on, right? Like, you have to, maybe if you're in his shoes, that's what his team is thinking to themselves. We can't go into the numbers. We talked about the GDP was something that stood out to me, right? And maybe you guys could talk about that a little bit to get us going into some of the actual numbers, right? He tried to tout growth, $818 billion in GDP growth, but that's minimal growth compared to even a neighbor like Indiana.
Right. That's Seth.
Yeah. I mean, this is now his economy. He is finishing up his 8th year, and he wants another 4. So there's no one else to blame if we're dissatisfied and if he's dissatisfied by the results. And I don't know how you can be proud of those results. He did try and put a spin on it. I do believe we were making improvements, but as we can see, we're no longer putting money into the rainy day fund. We're having trouble meeting educational ramps that were put in 8 years ago. We're having trouble keeping up with our neighbors. And the mistakes that we talked about 6 years ago, Senator Rose has been here longer. He saw the mistakes that were being made. If we would have, for substance, just done the nuclear thing that we all knew about for energy 7 years ago when he did the data center bill, if he would have done them in conjunction, just think of where we'd be. We wouldn't be shutting data centers down. We would be saying we have the infrastructure and we're not going to impact energy pricing because we thought ahead.
Yeah.
And those are the consequences, just basic mistakes that he owns. I don't know what you think, Senator, but...
I think about the fact that had Illinois grown at the same pace as the national average, we wouldn't even be arguing over numbers.
Yeah, right.
Because Illinois would be flush with cash.
Yeah.
And we're not. I mean, as it is, he's trying to convince us that 4% over his tenure as governor is something to be excited about. Under his leadership, we've overregulated, overtaxed, overburdened the people of Illinois to the point where literally, a once proud, expansionist state that was growing and firing all cylinders is now, you can say 4%, I guess, is something that, I guess it's not, contractionary by definition, but when you look at it in comparison to the rest of the national average, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And, I found the whole bit where he's up here, hey, we're great, everything's fine, almost delusional. I mean, look, if everything was fine, a third of your counties in the state wouldn't have voted to leave join another state.
Yeah.
I mean, under his watch as governor, think about it, in 8 years under his watch as governor, a third of the counties in Illinois have literally voted to leave Illinois.
To either Missouri, Indiana, and Iowa.
Right.
Too.
It's so he can say whatever he wants under here, under the Capitol Dome, but the reality is doesn't match to what real people are thinking.
Well, I think one of the things that
delusional.
As a lifelong Illinoisan, as a voter, as a person out there who's watching this, one of the things that just doesn't land too is, how long has he controlled the governor's office, the state, the House and the Senate? I mean, you two are in the Senate in the minority, battling every day uphill against a supermajority, and yet they still find a way to blame someone else for the problems.
Right.
Listen, I'll take that right there. That's a fantastic point. I mean, it's always somebody else's fault, and yet they occupy every office of government at the state level. That the Supreme Court is Democrat, the governor's Democrat, the statewide constitutional officer is Democrat, and they have a 2-to-1 supermajority in both the House and the Senate, and yet it's someone else's fault.
Yeah, he blamed President Trump a ton during the speech, obviously, and again that. For me, it resonates as, well, okay, you've been the governor for 7 years, and 4 of those were under Biden, and so where was the growth then? Where was the all of this this explosion of greatness for Illinois at that time?
Well, let me say this too, Mark, because look, this is, he makes it sound like, oh my gosh, the federal government's caused all these chaos and we can't pay our basic bills.
Yeah,
look, there is $55 billion, over $55 billion in revenue already in the door, collected, right? How much more do you need?
Yeah.
So $55 billion in the door already, and yet he says, oh, we're gonna have to raise taxes $200 million just to pay for our K-12 school kids. What? I mean, You have $55 billion and you couldn't find the extra $66 million or so it would take to get developmentally disabled frontline workers, the people who bathe, feed, clothe, toilet, our developmentally disabled friends and neighbors, literally the most vulnerable population we have in the state.
Yeah.
We couldn't get, in 8 years, this is his 8th budget. In 8 years, he has not gotten back to what he got from Governor Rauner, the evil Governor Rauner, who at least under Governor Rauner, those frontline workers are making 150% of minimum wage. Every year under J.B. Pritzker, they've been under 150%. They've gone backwards under his leadership. And here we are again, despite $55 billion, he couldn't spare $66 million to get these back just to where he got the handoff from Rauner 8 years ago. 8 years, it's just like
this
Senator
is why
Lewis
he
just
owns
said.
it now.
That's right.
This is why he owns it.
He owns it.
He owns it. Governors own, and he inherited something that maybe he didn't like or wanted to do differently.
Totally.
But he's been at the helm for 8 years. And he wants to go another 4. You can't continue to blame the past when you've been in charge for 8 and now want to go 4 more. And that's diverting to another topic. I believe the average citizen in Illinois feels below average. And our resources here in this state are second to none as far as our location, our logistics, our access to water, our able to produce natural resources, our embedded wealth is second to none to anyone in this state. And our residents should feel that they're living above average.
Yeah.
Because we have above average infrastructure. But they feel they're living below average. And when compared, they actually are.
Yeah. I think
that's a leadership problem.
One of the things that reminds me of is this statistic of you go back to just 2009, you're talking 17 years ago, Illinois had more people, more taxpayers, and yet the budget was $20 billion less. How do we need a $55 billion budget?
This is a great question. Let me just point out that, again, when you talk about the fact that Governor Pritzker's now, this is his 8th budget proposal.
Yeah.
Spending is up $16 billion in this 8th budget. I mean, from beginning to now, $16 billion. And I think if you ask the average...
That's about 40%?
And to Seth's point, if you ask the average Joe or Jolene, are you living better today than you were 8 years ago? The answer is absolutely not. You get $16 billion gone, and what do we have to show for it?
Right.
Under Governor Pritzker, we know that, you got property taxes have gone up. Again, $55 billion budget, and yet for the second year in a row, he cuts the property tax relief fund.
Yeah.
Well, who's that hit? It hits the property tax. It hits, owners and renters in this state. Second year in a row. We're going to prorate school kids, buses, just to put buses on the streets. It's going down 10% this year from last year under this budget he proposed today, just to roll buses to get kids to school. Not the teachers, not the classrooms, just the buses. We're down to 66% if this budget were to pass. You'd be down to 66% proration, which is a big deal in the suburbs.
Huge.
It's a huge deal to downstaters.
Yep.
We've got a lot of miles to road buses on, and yet the state of Illinois is, skimping on 34% of the bill now.
And as we talk about this spend, $56 billion, I think this year is what they're going to project. The people watching this, they have a different perception of how they feel about taxes, which is okay. But I believe those that are watching collectively aren't feeling their taxes are being spent with value. They're not getting the value out of the money they're paying. And that is causing a collective frustration amongst the 80%, the basic tax-paying base.
Yeah.
That I'm willing to pay a little more, but I'm not feeling I'm getting the value of what I'm contributing.
It's a great point. I mean, I've lived in this state under Governor Pritzker in Chicago, in West Central Illinois, in Central Illinois, and it's like, okay, we've spent $16 billion more. Do you feel like your life is $16 billion better living in this state? Where is that? Where is that improvement?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone's complaining. Everyone's, I can't, feed my family. I can't do this. I can't do that. And yet we want more. We're saying we're helping, but people aren't feeling it. And that's an implementation, execution problem, management problem of not using people's money to create systems and have helped those who need it the most in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
We don't think that way.
I think too, and maybe you guys can speak on this a little bit, like we don't know the exact budget, right? He didn't lay it out line by line. We won't know until it's thrown at you guys probably at 2 a.m, and then you're stuck dealing and managing with whatever's in there. But as far as what we learned from the speech today, is there positives you can go back to your constituents and say, listen, this is a move in the right direction? I think we agree the nuclear is a move in the right direction, but it's a move 8 years too late. Why have we done it? You don't get credit for something that's is coming late, but it is a step in the right direction. Things like that.
Do you want Mr. Positive?
Mr. Positive, go for it, Senator. Yeah.
I do. I come to this job with a positive attitude of trying to find ways to collectively work together. I believe my constituents demand that from me, and they want solutions, not rhetoric.
Yeah.
And that's just how I perceive the job. So do I see some things we can work together on? Do I see some positives? Yeah. One of them is, although we increased the budget, there's no new massive program that was announced that we know we can't afford. Mm-hmm. There wasn't commitments in perpetuity without a defined revenue source. And those things, okay, maybe we're trying to quash the Democratic legislators, our counterparts, that he was saying, don't bring me anything that you can't come up with a revenue source, because you're not getting it from the governor's office. He's signaling, you're not going to put in massive new subsidies, things that you're going to force me to figure out how to pay for it. That's one of the positives I saw. Now, how it goes in our world on the legislative side, I think the progressive majority party is going to produce revenue or ideas that are going to cost billions and billions and billions. And I think he signaled we're going to say no.
Yeah.
We're going to veto. That's one of the positives I saw.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you sort of the contradiction in terms of two things that I thought, on face value could have been a positive, but then you look at the broader record. Okay.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
The first is he's talking about deregulating housing to get
the build program.
Yeah, to get more housing.
We love acronyms here in Illinois.
The biggest contributor, you've got your building costs, everything else. At the end of the day, as you live your life, the amount you pay in property taxes is one of the biggest factors in affordability of housing. And, there's nothing in the speech about property tax relief. But then when you actually look at the budget again, he cut the property tax relief fund, the mandated categoricals that, school districts have to provide for their students, like transportation. That all goes, when he cuts that, it just falls right back on property taxpayers in the form of higher property taxes. So, on one hand, I want to say, yeah, let's talk about that. But then on the other hand, you're like, what do you,
the operating cost for low income housing, affordable housing is huge.
Right. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is property taxes. Right. And like, where's that relief? On the other hand, he then talks about energy affordability. Yes, except that literally last month he signed a bill into law to raise everybody's power bills. He took the caps off of what wind and solar can charge, which just means higher prices for everybody. And then he sticks all of us with an $8 billion electric battery mandate, or a battery mandate for wind and solar installations as well. Again, you can't sign a bill into law raising my power bills literally last month and then turn around today and say, oh, I'm going to work with you on affordability.
But love.
It's just, but yeah, we love you. We love you. You're not going to be able to turn your heat on, but we love you.
Listen, I mean, the sense, the frustrations, I think a lot of us as you're watching it, you feel that frustration because you feel powerless in so many ways, right? Being in the minority for you guys there in the room, you have to sit there and know that it's a giant uphill battle. Are there things that you at least are looking forward to working with across the aisle here over the next couple of weeks to try to move some things forward, to try to get some at least clarity on certain spending?
Well, look, I'm going to say this not about the governor's office, but about some of the other Democrats in the General Assembly.
Yeah.
We have over the years been able to reach across the aisle and work with other members on the Democrat side to help boost some of the funding for the development of disabled estate. Again, literally, truly the most vulnerable populations through no fault of their own, who need our help, right? We've been able to do that over the last couple of years. Again, I don't know why we have to argue about that. That ought to be like job one. The other thing I'm going to say is I do think on this power bill affordability issue, there's a rising chorus, and you saw it in the bill that yes, he just signed the another power bill increase in the law. But when that vote occurred in November, when the actual vote came down, you saw for the first time rank and file Democrats peeling off and saying no.
Yeah.
In fact, Senator Willie Preston gave a great speech on the floor of the Senate against it, saying, I'm not going to raise any more bills. And so I think that if we can get more Democrats to say enough's enough, then I think we could actually get something done.
Right.
Do you think that comes from them listening to their constituents? Like, how am I supposed to go back to my people and say, yep, I voted for increasing your energy costs?
They've been doing it for
right.
But again, I think some of them are starting to get,
I think they're starting to wise up that you keep on saying it's they're to blame, but you're the person in charge for 8, 10, some of the elected, 20 years in these districts. And they're saying, how can you keep on saying it's someone else's fault when you keep on coming to my door and you've been coming to my door for years? You're the one in charge. So what are you going to do about it? And I think that constituency in these legacy Democratic districts are starting to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, feel the heat. And I will say one of the things that I have a question for, and I'm sure many people watching this have a question, is it's this kind of like, who do I trust? Who do I believe? I don't really know who to believe, right? The governor says over and over again, now it's 8+ years of a balanced budget. And then I talk with everyone, on the Republican side, they say, that's just not true. So explain it. How is it not a balanced budget? In as layman terms as possible. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, look, if you, how do you have a balanced budget when you have $130 billion plus pension debt?
Yeah.
Well, but let's just go on. Let's just go to this budget specifically.
Yeah.
This budget is balanced, predicated on passing $780 million in tax increases.
Yeah.
So I could have a balanced family budget pending my raise I might get in the future from my boss for my current spending.
Yeah.
Do I have a balanced family budget? No, because I'm overspending currently.
You're expecting more income to come in, as opposed to saying, "Hey, we know the budget is balanced because we're actually cutting a bunch of spending and we're still taxing at the same rate." Right? Something along those lines.
Correct, and he's putting pressure on his own membership of the majority party to say, hey, if you don't pass these tax increases, I'm going to have to cut something out of your world that's important to you. And that's the leverage he's using from the governor's office to get these tax increases in there.
Gotcha.
He's not taking the leadership position and saying, here's where I believe we can save in this state of Illinois, and I'm going to cut these things from the departments where we're going to have a hiring freeze. I mean, here's a guy that just said, we're going to have a 4% reduction or 2% reduction, and we generate $500 million in savings or putting in a savings account this year.
2%.
2%?
Yeah.
I mean, he did that because he was afraid of what's going to happen this year.
Yeah.
Yet he comes out and says, I need $600 or $780 million more.
It's contradictory for sure.
It's contradictory.
You know, here's the other thing I think is you can just quantify. And, you know, last year he went out and had a speech and said, look at me, I'm going to give higher education all these great increases. And college kids of Illinois, I care, affordability, all the stuff that you hear today, right? And then, you know, within a month of signing into law, he rescinds, 2/3 of the increase. I think that honestly gets at exactly what you're talking about. I mean, not just are people confused, but they're also cynical.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just cynical because when a governor says, hey, look at me, I'm great, we're going to do a 3% increase, we're going to get, affordability, it's a big deal, send your kid to college, yada, yada. And then a month later, 2/3 of it's cut like that. Well, he knew that when he was out taking the press slap, So that just adds to the cynicism. Again, look, Seth and I don't need to sit here and explain this to anybody. 1/3 of the counties of Illinois vote to leave Illinois. Everybody watching this has already made up their mind.
The mass exodus. I mean, you see the surveys, the news articles all the time about the population loss. I mean, you can look at it. I know he's touted it as it's not as bad because if you talk about immigration and things like that. We wait to see the official numbers on what we're going to be spending on immigration here. It's certainly something that I know a lot of people.
We're at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Independent whether it's growth or losing.
Yeah.
There's no argument that we're in the bottom 5 states in the United States of America for overall growth.
Yeah.
That's not disputed.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at overall where the United States is at right now, we're with other states that are led by Democratic leadership. New York and California are in the bottom as far as the net growth as well. And I think that maybe that is a sign that, hey, people are voting with their feet, right?
They are.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that. And, I go back up into my neck of the woods where we have some of the most embedded wealth in the nation. Again, we got Lake Michigan water.
Yeah.
We have no tornadoes. We have no hurricanes. We have no fires. We have logistics, people. I mean, we have everything in the Cook and the Collier counties.
Yeah.
People should be thriving to come there, and they're not. And it has nothing to do with what we have to offer. It's how we're delivering the services through, leadership and making people feel that they're not wanted. Here in Illinois.
It's a great point. I mean, and I'm sure it's what many people are thinking to themselves every day, especially in those collar communities around Chicagoland area. Why are we not thriving? Why is life so difficult, and why is it not expanding?
Sorry, we got
go for it.
Go. This is from his speech. Okay, we've done all of this. Quote? This is his Pritzker quote. We've done all of this while balancing the budget every year and making historic investments. And this is the joke. First of all. Budget isn't balanced, but moving on. Making historic investments in education, child welfare, disability services, and private sector job creation. Okay? Well, let's just take those 4. Literally, investments in K-12, he literally said today he needs a new $200 million tax.
On the tech companies, hopefully. The social media
tech,
companies.
Right, social media.
Yeah.
To fund what was already promised to our K-12 schools. And even then, he's still cutting the mandated categoricals like transportation fund to rural school buses. Child welfare. His DCFS department, the director of DCFS was held in contempt of court a dozen odd times. And they literally, this is the most despicable thing ever. Hundreds of kids have died in the custody of the Department of Children and Family Services.
That's a whole nother.
Right.
We could spend 3 hours on DCFS. And when's the last time they even passed an audit?
Right. No. Well, disability services. We just talked about it. He took over. Frontline workers are only saved at 150% of minimum wage. And in 8 years, they haven't gotten back to 150% of minimum wage. And then private sector job creation. Really? We are behind everybody.
Yeah.
It's just not believable in any shape or form.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things where it's important to talk about this stuff, because we live in a world now where it's like they're just going to get up and smile and say the thing and hope we believe it, when our eyes and the data shows us none of it's true. None of it is actually the picture you're painting it to be. Right. And I do think that's what creates a lot of the frustration. As we wrap up here, I appreciate your guys' time. It's very enlightening for me, and to learn and to keep, educating myself, and for everyone, hopefully who's watching here, and get involved with the conversation on social media as well. Reach out to these guys on social media, follow them, and they'll give you the resources you need.
They'll give you more entertainment.
Maybe a little bit more from Mr. Rose. I just want to ask, for each one of you, we can start with you, Senator Lewis. What is your goal over the next couple of weeks, as far as working for your constituents and trying to manage what we just wait will arrive on our desks and we'll have to deal with?
So my goal is to get a good understanding of the budget, what's happening, not to be shut out 2 months, to at least have a voice at the table to express some of the concerns of the residents of Northern Illinois. The majority party has a history of saying, hey, we're working with you while we're sitting in the lobby while the meeting's going on. I want to be at the table at least to express some concerns, because I do believe in an equitable opportunity for prosperity. And my majority party, they're pretty damn good at equitable opportunity, but they're destroying prosperity here in Illinois. And I think that's where Republicans can lead on that and talk about how we can be prosperous and help our state.
Yeah, it's great.
Senator Rose?
That's a great answer, Seth. Look, I is always trying to bring common sense and then transparency, because the numbers are there and you just got to dig and work and claw to find them. But I try to put them out there to constituents. Nothing works well, in a vacuum. You got to have some light on this. For my own district, our biggest thing, the affordability issue is key in terms of power. I'm not going to sit here and listen to get lectured to by Governor Pritzker about affordability when literally last month he raised my power bill and raised everybody watching this power bill. But I will work with people like Senator Preston, and I think Senator Joyce was a no on that roll call. There's a growing chorus of Democrats that have had enough as well. I'm happy to work with them on getting real, actual relief in your power bills. And then for us locally, water is a huge issue. Yeah. And I think that
you get lots of bipartisan support on the aquifer.
Look forward to working on that. And in fact, I was talking to one of the Democrat senators from the suburbs about just a global response to all things water. I mean, we have this amazing natural resource that God has gifted us with, and we have to be good stewards of it.
Right.
As long as LA's not trying to build a pipeline to siphon it off. You know what I mean?
That's another JB Pritzker special.
Yeah, I think we just got to remember, gentlemen. The hope that you have found in a very difficult year. Love is light, and it gets you through a long night. Love is light. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
Senator Rose, Senator Lewis, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, and for everyone out there, we appreciate it.
We're going to stop right there.
Thank you all so much.